Authenticity is crucial in addressing cultural heritage conservation. First, what does it mean for an object, artwork, or expression to be considered authentic? Authenticity signifies the genuineness and integrity of cultural artifacts. It involves verifying that the origins and attributes of these items remain true and unaltered from their original form. This verification process typically includes examining provenance, attribution, and material analysis. When an object is composed of several historical materials, its authenticity doesn't stand as a single fixed point, but rather becomes a narrative of its own history, telling the story of its creation and transformation over time. It's crucial to differentiate between preservation and conservation. Preservation aims to maintain cultural heritage in its existing state, whereas conservation might involve interventions to stabilize or restore the heritage for future generations. There are many challenges to authenticity. For instance, there was a growing recognition that the concept of authenticity was often narrowly defined and Eurocentric, predominantly focused on material attributes like design, material, and workmanship. The NARA document on authenticity acknowledges that authenticity transcends these traditional bounds to include other elements such as spirit and feeling, which are relevant in non-Western contexts. It emphasizes that authenticity should not be judged solely on the basis of scientific evidence or historical documentation, but also on cultural values such as oral traditions, performing arts, and social practices. Additionally, while art restoration enhances the stability, legibility, and aesthetic appeal of artworks in order to make them more accessible and enjoyable, they often involve tough decisions about how much to intervene without compromising the historical authenticity and patina that has accumulated over time. Effective restoration respects the original materials and craftsmanship, in addition to the historical, cultural, and social layers. Lastly, cultural heritage faces the issues of forgeries, where items are deliberately created to deceive. These forgeries challenge our understanding and approach to authenticity, requiring constant vigilance and advanced techniques to detect them.
So let's discuss four different values that contribute to an artwork's significance, which are monetary value, artistic value, cultural and historical value, and personal value. Here are some examples to represent these four different values. Jeff Koons rabbit is a prime example of high monetary value in contemporary art. It sold for $91 million at the Christie's auction in 2019. The value of the sculpture is influenced by its artist's reputation, the rarity as a steel piece, and high demand in the contemporary art market. For the artwork Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh is celebrated for its artistic value. His unique style and the technical mastery make this painting an invaluable piece of art history. It also represents aesthetics and cultural impact to the public. The Guernica, created by Picasso, is a response to the bombing of Guernica. It serves a political statement and a symbol against the horrors of war, which extensive exhibition history and cultural resonance. As an example of our work with deep personal value is Tracy Emin's My Bed, created in 1998. This installation piece, featuring Tracy's own personal items, and provides an intimate glimpse into her personal struggles by resonating with audiences who have faced similar challenges. So, based on previous definitions and examples, let's think more into the relationship between authenticity and value for artwork, particularly in the context of cultural heritage. Thus, authenticity equals value in art. As we discussed in previous examples, the authenticity of artwork might impact the value in the realm of cultural heritage because of it might be considered as a historical document for reference later on. But the value in art is multifaceted. Considering all values above, some forgeries is credited with exceptional skill may still be admired for their artistic quality, even if they lack the market value of an authentic piece.
Now, I'd like to shift over to the physical and scientific side of authentication, including different techniques of examination. However, I'd like to first establish what long-term degradation looks like and what causes it. Long-term chemical damage can be caused by many factors, including light, atmosphere, or even interactions with its own materials. These factors cause gradual pigment darkening over time, which can take the form of yellowing. A high lead white content could be somewhat of a contributing indication of age. Cracking or peeling paint, which is caused by a lack of interlayer adhesion, can also be present. Now, when it comes to forgers, their biggest obstacle is trying to actually replicate the slow hardening of oil paint over time. They have several techniques of doing this, including exposure to acid or alkaline environments, mixing or painting over pigments, yellow dyes to try and replicate natural yellowing, and they will often reuse old supports or canvases to replicate ages as well. Some simple mechanical ways to test for age could be the alcohol test, which makes new paint soft and old paint unaffected. The hot needle test easily penetrates new paint because it is soft.
In this section, we will review the techniques that are utilized in determining the authenticity of various objects. Technological advancements have allowed new techniques to be demonstrated, such as digital imaging. There are a variety of approaches to achieve this, including UVs, IRs, RSs, RMs, and radiography. Unlike the risks presented with chemical approaches, techniques such as UVs and IRs are economically affordable and are less destructive with sampling practices. As with anything, the method of approach varies on a case-by-case basis. For example, infrared radiation can penetrate all layers of a painting to reveal preliminary sketches that would not be present in an alternative such as an X-ray. The type of pigments found in a sample can also help determine the appropriate approach, as some are organic and demand a non-destructive approach, unlike inorganic treatments.
The history of pigments offers invaluable insights into the authenticity of artworks across various eras. From prehistoric cave paintings created with earth pigments, soot, and charcoal, to the introduction of Egyptian blue and malachite by ancient Egyptians, the presence of specific pigments aids in the authenticating genuine artifacts. As art evolved, so did the palette of pigments. The Greeks favored white lead, while Tyrian purple became a hallmark of Roman art. Ultramarine dominated the medieval period, and Prussian blue emerged in the 18th century. By detecting the presence or absence of these key pigments, experts can date and authenticate artworks from different times. Moreover, the unique chemical compositions of pigments like small cerulean blue and cadmium yellows and reds serve as fingerprints in the authentication process. As the saying goes, permanence is the sine qua non for an artist's pigment, underlining the enduring nature of these materials and their significance in determining the authenticity of art throughout history.
Now I will talk about underpainting, undersketches, and how IR, infrared, helps make them visible. For paintings, most artists usually make a sketch before, either made out of charcoal or other dark pigments. Being able to see sketches allows us to see the process that led to the final product. Forgers usually don't bother with sketches because there's really no need for exploratory ideas or changes. To the right, we have two sample images taken from Chad Weiner's experiment that investigates how to get undersketches fully exposed through the use of IR. We can see that compared to the naked eye image of the sample, the outlines of the underpainting become extremely clear. And now, finally, we will talk about radiography, which is both non-invasive and non-destructive. It is usually used to see the history of components in objects and its different layers. It can also be used to see any evidence of past restorations. It is important to note that denser areas of paintings tend to show up lighter. This is usually the case for pigments that contain heavy metals like lead. The image above is a detailed photo of a tableau of St. Peter where in the radiograph image we can see the wood grain itself from the wood panel that it was made on, as well as nails, areas of paint loss, and even two large holes in the wood that were originally filled with gesso to be made smooth enough to paint on.
In this first case study, we will examine how authenticity is tested to suggest that an individual was involved in forgery. In this example, our group looked at the contentions surrounding Robert Trotter. Unlike the readings that demonstrate the likes of digital imaging, the study took a traditional approach. They observed the painting shown on screen that was seized and investigated by the FBI. The authors would hypothesize that they could use radiocarbon dating to help determine that Trotter was involved in a dubious practice. Radiocarbon dating involves a physical sampling of an object. It compares the found carbon-14 isotopes on a sample to its understood half-life of approximately 5,730 years. The produced results from the dating contradict one another. The canvas suggested a mid-19th century origin based on the signature. A tested sample, however, determined that this piece was composed in the latter half of the 20th century or within the 1980s. This study concluded with an emphasis of how radiocarbon dating is effective if the sample was suitable and not affected by subsequent interventions. The processes of undoing these interventions would draw more risk to the sample. Contemporary explorations with the likes of digital imaging would be less invasive and effectively differentiate the samples.
However, the question of evaluating authenticity is a complex one. While technological advancements have provided us with powerful tools to analyze materials and detect forgeries, as seen in cases like Robert Trotter's, the cultural context of an artwork can challenge our conventional understanding of what makes a piece authentic. This is particularly evident in the rich tradition of Chinese art, where the reproduction of famous works was not historically associated with forgery, but rather served as a legitimate training method for aspiring artists. In the realm of calligraphy, for instance, Chinese artists have long devoted themselves to attaining artistic perfection through meticulous copying of ancient masters' works. The blurred lines between production, copy, forgery, and fake in modern Chinese art are epitomized by the remarkable case of Zhang Daqian. A master forger, Daqian took pride in his ability to fool even the most discerning connoisseurs and critics of his time. Yet, paradoxically, his works have achieved unparalleled value in the Asian art market, setting records at the Sotheby's auctions. Daqian's legacy compels us to reconsider the relationship between authenticity and artistic value, suggesting that authenticity may not always be a simple matter of material truth. Instead, it can be a complex interplay of tradition, interpretation, and cultural context. As we navigate the intricacies of the art world, his story invites us to approach questions of authenticity with a more nuanced and open-minded perspective.